Thanks, Shivam. A very good evening to all the dignitaries who've joined us on the second day of the fifth edition of Global Dialogue on Advanced Technology. The theme of the global conference this year is Innovating at the Frontier from Agriculture to Agribusiness. The whole idea is to find innovative solutions for traditional agricultural challenges, showcase such innovations from across the globe, and create a platform for dialogue on how these can be adapted in India. We had two highly curated sessions around soil and water management and farm monitoring yesterday, which were very well received. We also had a very interesting inaugural session yesterday with the policymakers and renowned experts from all across the world. Today, we have panel sessions on mechanization and automation, post-harvest technologies, and advanced biotech. For these sessions, we have over 15 international speakers joining us over the next 2 days. Coming to this panel session today on mechanization and automation, we have a very interesting lineup of speakers from Australia, US, Israel, and Netherlands discussing their innovations. The idea is to provide knowledge on latest global developments and at the same time open up avenues for partnership with Indian private sector where we see points of convergence. The panel will be moderated by Mr. Rohtash Mal, Co-Chair CI Task Force on Startups and Chairman EM3 Agri Services Private Limited. Mr. Mal, as you all know, is a corporate veteran with over 4 decades of experience in diverse sectors. A strategist with keen business acumen, he has provided innovative solutions for executing greenfield projects, managing steady growth businesses, delivering 2 turnarounds and 4 startups. He's also a leading business coach to large corporates and a mentor and coach for young entrepreneurs. I would now hand over the session to Mr. Mal to take this forward. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Rolly. Good evening. You have to keep my introduction a little short in future. I actually listened to you and say, who's that she's talking about? Lovely to meet up with the panelists and a subject close to my heart, mechanization. I had the privilege of leading one of India's foremost companies in this sector many years ago. I note from the resumes that I have is that Ajay is an alumnus of Escorts, the company I was privileged to lead for 5 years. And a special, shall we say, tingle in the chest. I superannuated 7-8 years ago. Coming to the subject today, I'll do for a few minutes what the kickoff is supposed to do. Instead of some vertical comments, I'd like to make some generic horizontal comments which should apply across the board, a particular reference to India. The pace of trackerization in India, well, what is called mechanization is actually the pace of trackerization. It's been pretty good. And growth rates of 10-15% were seen for many, many years. We have an industry which is inching towards 1 million tractors a year and so on. But it's still trackerization, not mechanization. And unlike most developed economies, the ratio of, let's say, the capex deployed on implements and robotics and intelligent management of hardware is just the reverse that it is in India. So essentially what I'm trying to say is the headroom available in India is enormous. And therefore, all companies are, apart from making a beeline for India, are also seeing this as one of the mega opportunities of the globe. Do recall that we have 300 plus million acres available, 330, some tell me, of mechanization to be done. Actual penetration is very low. Out of the 6-7 services that are required per crop, barely 1 or 2 is the penetration, if that. So for all those who are on the webinar or the session today, we are looking at perhaps one of the biggest mechanization opportunities in the universe today. The second big mega trend that has to be seen is not much has changed in the last 15-20 years. The tillers are still the same, the sprayers are still the same, effectively, just like the automobile is still the same till Tesla comes along. So if the entire journey of the automobile is from the Model T Ford to the Tesla of today, I suspect Indian agri-mech and agri-mech at large is still somewhere in the middle. And somewhere to the right, towards the Tesla end of the spectrum, is the subject that we're going to be, in a sense, talking about today. Both have similar effort directions to make complex simple. Engines, gearboxes, transmissions, etc. Let's face it, they've been around for quite a while, and there is no Intel inside until now. And perhaps that's what I'm keenly looking forward to hearing from today, particularly in some domains of India's efforts at modernizing agriculture. Say things like intelligent harvesting. I mean, we all know that if sugar levels are what they are in a fruit, then that's the time to harvest. But every apple on the tree is not similarly matured. So can we have waves of mechanization, so to speak, for apple harvesting, if you like? And we can. Soil management is still in 20, 30 year ago era, where you had to, it's still chemical-based titration and so on and so forth, slow. What are the new methods? And how can these now help in mechanization? Patches of crops which are fully ready for harvest versus patches that are not. We know that variability exists. And lastly, we do know a lot of value is lost in crop protection. Sensing pesticide use need and then delivering pesticide appropriately. Let me call it bespoke tailoring, if you like, to bring it to a very different level. I think those are some of the technological and engineering challenges that we face. I am firmly of the opinion that there's a surfeit of technology across the globe, but proportionally not as much application. And in the context of India, I do hope that we will be talking about, as we speak of recent developments, we'll be talking about unlocking value for the Indian farmer. We'll be talking about, shall I say, innovations to do that. And more importantly, in the case of India, deploying at scale. In the case of agri-mechanization, I'm very keen on hearing, not merely from these four brilliant speakers that we have from across the globe. I'm very keenly looking forward to questions that aim at asking questions about keys to capacity utilization of machines. Remember, if you have machines, you're in the asset utilization business, right? Until that gets done, not much gets done. Job scheduling, transit time management, particularly small farms in India. And that is where capacity gets lost. And therefore, the price per service, the price per use, price per acre of that service goes high. And therefore, the value creation actually is in some danger. So I've kind of raised themes, 4, 5, 6 themes that if convenient and if fitting your theses that you're about to embark on, do try and touch, because as this is a global conference, I also am equally aware that a significant part of the audience is Indian, keenly looking forward to ideas on how to solve some of these issues. And I dearly hope that you will humor me in terms of getting this across. In terms of housekeeping, we have an hour and some minutes, hour and 20 minutes. May I request that each speaker keeps about 15 minutes. If it goes excessively in excess, I will seek to remind you very politely, I assure you. And then hopefully, if we got 15, 20 minutes left after the questions have come in sequence, let's see if we can make a round table out of it. And if we have questions that can cut across the floor. With those not so few remarks, may I request that Paul Goethals takes over. And Paul's from Wageningen University, has a specialization in information management and automation in the food business, has an incredible record, and I will not go into the details of his resume, which are there for all to see. Over to you, Paul. And,
yes. Thank you very much for the introduction. I will share my screen and guide you through some business of ours. Is it clearly visible?
Yes.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Well, already shortly introduced. I'm Paul Goethals, Business Development Manager at Wageningen University and Research, and part of the Agri-Food Robotics Group in this organization. I have a background in agricultural engineering and a specialization in information management, automation in the agri-food business. I worked for 20 years about in different companies, always in the range of automation, information management, robotics, sensing, and about 10 years now at Wageningen Research. I worked as well for the livestock department, as for the horticulture department, and now for a couple of years in the agri-food robotics group. Well, focus areas, computer vision, robotics, automation, information management. Well, the last couple of years, of course, AI, and dominantly in agribusiness and food industry. Wageningen is a university with about 15,000 students in the Netherlands. All the parts of the university are located on one campus. That makes it easy to exchange a lot of knowledge and experience between the people over there. It's got about 3,000 staff. Also important to know that besides the university in which the education takes place, we have a number of about 10 contract research institutes sharing the same domains as the university does. Well, I work at Wageningen Food and Bio-based Research. The contract research institutes have about 3,000 people in staff. That's researchers dominantly. And we're active in the field of plant science, livestock, and food industry. So those are the main domains. I talked about the Agri-Food Robotics Group, for which I'm active as a business developer. That's a group of about 50 researchers active in solutions in computer vision, spectral sensing, AI, and robotics. And we're embedded in an international Wageningen ecosystem, sharing plant science, animal science, and food science. Well, the expertise is on vision, on learning, on robotic systems, and spectral sensing. And we have about 5 different propositions to connect us to the market. Well, that's on optimal breeding performance, looking for improvement in plants and seeds. We have a proposition on circular food systems, more and more important nowadays in the world, to reuse sources and minimize resources in the plant area and other domains. We have a proposition on hands-free production. That's mainly on robotics and, for example, harvesting. A proposition on objective product and process quality. That's dominantly on quality inspection and using all kinds of sensing technology for that. And a relatively new one, I think, in the perspective of today, a very important one is about ethics, adoption, and ecosystems, in which technology introductions, of course, take place. So that's, I think, interesting for today to see what the aspects are of that. Well, shortly, the different propositions, targeting, for example, plant phenotyping solutions to assess the quality of young plants, but also of fresh produce that's in the greenhouses or on the field, but also automatic scanning systems. For example, the top picture is on sugar beets, to see what the performance of the very young plants is already and store all the data that comes out of it. Circular food systems, that's all about how to manage crops. So that's about sensing from above, but also in the field, look for early detection of diseases and automate actions over there, like robotized weeding equipment. Hands-free production, concentrating on autonomous harvesting, of different products as well for vegetables as for example, flowers or fruits. We have some prototypes and working equipment in the market already. We work a lot together with the machine industry as researchers to work on applicable machinery that can be sold in the market. Well, you see an example of a bell pepper harvester over there, one for broccoli and another one for flowers harvesting in greenhouses. The proposition on objective product and process quality is a lot about hyperspectral imaging at the moment and sensing, with which we can see more, of course, than with the human eye. And so we can have a good quality assessment at any place in the logistics supply chain, becoming more and more important to steer the supply chains in an optimal way and have good decision support of all the data coming out of these sensors. Also for tracking and tracing, of course, important to have all the detailed data exchanged across the complete supply chain, and also such solutions we work on for sorting and picking and packing of product, for example, in different places in the supply chain. Well, the last one about ethics, adoption and ecosystems. We are convinced that all the technology we develop should find its way to practice. And that's a subject on its own, because only when the field or the sector is ready for it, or the farmers are ready for it to adopt these technologies, it will work. So we put a lot of emphasis on how to set up ecosystems and exchange groups to educate and share experiences, but also to demonstrate new technology, that uptake and adoption will be increased. Well, thanks. This was my introduction. If there are any questions at the moment, please ask, or maybe otherwise later on in this presentation or through this course. Thank you very much.
Paul, thank you so much. That was hyper efficient. You've saved about 5-7 minutes of your time.
That's for the rest of the group then.
No, we'll get back to you. Rolly, if we can get the questions rolling on the side. And I don't see any on the side panel yet.
Not yet, sir. We'll share as soon as we receive them. Yeah.
And you put me in the same spot as yesterday, so I have to innovate some questions then. Okay, Paul, one that struck me was that this is a bewildering array of applications. And I cannot imagine where any of them would not be applicable in India. And therefore, to the audience, I have this to say: if you get on your chat or whatever, and do send us questions which are granular in nature, some can be answered on the screen. I have one question. Out of all these, how many, Paul, have found application and root in India? And how are you thinking about transferring technologies? Your country, your university in particular, is a developer of solutions. And obviously, you seek markets. And how are you thinking about this problem?
Well, what I think is very important is cooperation with, for example, machine industry. That's what we do a lot. We work up till the level of about working prototype in the field. But already in earlier stages, we connect with machine industry to set up joint ventures and have cooperation in developing towards marketable products. So that's a very important one, I think, to have early liaisons with machine industry and work together on further development of these prototypes.
Okay. Are there any demonstration farms or demonstration opportunities that you created on your own in India to draw even the machine industry? As I mentioned a little while ago, if you take away the 5-6 top tractor or harvester manufacturers, the rest of the business is very, very widely scattered. And therefore, even to draw attention, I was wondering if you have done any small or large scale demonstrations.
Not specifically in India yet, concerning demonstration areas or farms or whatsoever. We do a lot of sharing and information about experiments and developments we have in Wageningen and in the Netherlands in a broad sense. And we try to connect, of course, to external international parties to show that as well on fairs, on other events like this, where we don't have spots in India yet. But that will be very interesting to connect, of course.
So that gives me an idea, and this is for Roli. Roli, make a particular note of this. I think this is one of the foremost universities of the world. There's cutting edge work going on there. Israel is another case in point. We're keenly looking forward to hearing the other panelists and well. I think at the CII Agri Council level, we should make an outreach to connect, make it a job to connect this to Indian industry by and large, so that the pace of demonstration can increase.
Yeah, and I think organizations like yours could facilitate in connecting machine industry with knowledge institutes. I think that's a very good in-between.
Exactly what I'm referring to. Wonderful, Paul. I hope we are back to you with more questions as the side panel
goes. Thank you.
It is the end of the day. I hope people are not tired. Wake up, everybody.
Sir, just to come in there, so like you mentioned, that's the whole idea of this conference, to have these innovations and then take them forward with the industry. That was one point I wanted to make. And then we've got a few questions which I've posted to you on the chat also. If you want, I can read them out.
If you can make, it's not visible to me for some reason.
It's not visible to me as well. So please.
Sure. So the first question is how the commercialization of such technologies is aligned with mass production and deployment. And the second question is sweeper robo, how efficient and minimum area for deployment, and does it detect disease also?
Well, the first question towards mass customers or mass production of these kind of equipment, that's why we cooperate with machine industry. We don't go further than prototypes, but with machine industry, it's possible to manufacture, develop concrete products that can be put in the market. And of course, when numbers rise, prices go down. And you see also we work a lot with existing components. As much as possible, we work with existing components already that are on the market, like cameras, actuators, robotic arms, etc. We don't develop them ourselves, but use already common used components for that and make new solutions with that. So we have building blocks already.
Thank you, Paul. I have one more request for you. I don't know if it was on your presentation, but I do know that your university carries out a lot of work in the agri-residue space. In India particularly, and turning it into downstream chemicals and biogases and so on. India particularly uses a very different technology for managing agri-residue, very different from the rest of the world. And it's a very cheap technology. It's called a matchstick. A matchstick. We set fire to our fields, right? And that's a major area for cooperation and collaboration in India. And I do hope that at a CII level, we can begin to talk about that as well. Thank you once again.
Thank you. The other question was on disease detection. Well, that's also part of our technology in spraying, and of course sensing in the field, early disease detection in different crops. It's also a major topic we're covering.
Wonderful. So with that, may I be permitted to invite the second Paul in the group? Paul, have I got it right? Bhutia?
You have, thank you.
Wonderful. Paul is going to, while he introduces himself, I think I pick up 2 or 3 themes from his introduction, which is about spraying and which is about robotics. And one of the critical pieces, crucial pieces that I talked about in my opening comments India loses arguably between 20 to 30% of produce to disease. And one of the major problems is after the plant has grown to a certain height, it cannot be accessed. The inside cannot be accessed except through the air. And I guess that's where you come in. Over to you for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing at Ambit Robotics, and particularly around crop spraying. I'll just quickly introduce myself. I've been working in agriculture in Asia for the last 10 years, traveling around and talking to smallholder farmers and really trying to understand the economics and the decisions that smallholder farmers make, and have been doing quite a lot of writing around the adoption of technology, and most recently with Grow Asia based in Singapore. But stepped out of those roles to build something for farmers, to really build a new technology that I felt was needed and helpful in the region. And we have started with crop spraying. That's the area where we're focused, in automation of crop spraying. The reason that we started with crop spraying is, well, there are 4 reasons. One is that backpack spraying is dangerous, and backpack spraying is certainly the state of the art right across Asia, and it is not a healthy lifestyle to be working as a contractor spraying crops day in, day out, as you can imagine from this image, and I'm sure your own experience on farms. It's also actually quite an expensive way to spray a crop, and it takes up to about 10 person hours to spray a hectare. And it is getting expensive for farmers, particularly in countries like Thailand, and it will continue to get more expensive in India as more and more labour is pulled into the cities, into the manufacturing sector and services sector in India. It's not a very accurate way to spray. You don't end up with an even application of treatment, and it's simply not environmentally sustainable. And so when we talk to farmers, this is really what they're looking for a solution to. But we also went and spoke to some of the larger companies. And if you talk to PepsiCo, who have a very large potato operation in the north of India, they're looking for solutions to, from an OH&S point of view. If you talk to the seed companies, they're really looking for crop imaging as well as accurate spraying. And the chemical companies are really looking at automation as a way of adding value to their to their product portfolio and deriving a lot more value from their intellectual property. So this is the solution that we've developed here. We've got 2 types of robots which we've built, 2 types of spray robots. And the distinctive features that I guess I'd like to draw your attention to are, first of all, the adaptability to various landscapes. So if you think about the robots that you've seen on Facebook or on LinkedIn from America or from France, they're a much bigger unit, and they're really designed for a uniform farming system with very, very consistent row lengths, consistent row types. These are really designed for farms that are not presently subject to automation. So they're farms that are inconsistent in shape and terrain, and that was a real priority for us. The next one is really about portability. And if you look at this robot at the front here, you can put it on the back of a motorbike and you can take it from farm to farm. And that's been a really important design feature for us right from the beginning. Ritesh at the start spoke about asset utilization. And if you want to get good utilization out of an agricultural robot, you have to be able to move it between farms. The farms in Asia, and particularly in India included, are so small that you can't just have one robot per farm. The economics are never going to work. So we've really focused on something that can be taken on a motorbike and go and visit 2 or 3 farms in a day. And provide a service across multiple farms. And that's where we get the utilization, and that's where we get the economics to work in this context. The next feature I would draw your attention to is the focus on semi-autonomous rather than fully autonomous. I think what we'll see as the industry grows is a step through semi-autonomous to fully autonomous. So again, if you take the robot at the front here, somebody's standing at the end of the crop row, the robot's going up and down, it's spraying autonomously, but it's being refilled manually. And I think that is the kind of combination of what some people call cobots, robots that work together with humans, where the human is kept safe. You still get the speed and the efficiency of a robot, but you get the ability to deal with the variation in farm from having a person there to refill it. The other thing that we have developed here is really a platform type approach. So again, if you look at that small robot in the front there, you can actually remove the tank from that robot. And we are actually developing soil testing units that can be fitted to that robot, fertilizing for variable rate fertilizer application, seeding units, all on the same motors, all on the same wheels. And again, it goes back to that idea of asset utilization. How can you take one robot, move it between multiple farms each day, and allow it to a single robot to have interchangeable components that allow it to take part in seeding, fertilizing, imaging, all from the same basic unit. Remembering that whether we're imaging or fertilizing, we still want to move up and down those crop rows. So your basic software, your basic hardware at the base of the robot's the same, regardless of those different tasks. You can fit a different tool to the top of the robot. So it's the combination of portability, interchangeability of the tools, that we think we can hit the kind of economics that we need to reach for the Asian market. There's just a bit more of a detailed photo of the robot in action there, and some of the sensors that we use to detect end of row and position in row. I want to end by talking a little bit about how do we get to the economics where we can see large-scale robotic adoption in Asia. So we believe that we really need to be looking at $1,000 and $2,000 robots. We really need to be looking at robots that can hit that kind of cost point, because that's where we can offset the cost of labor against the value of the robot. And that's ultimately the magic. That's when we go from prototypes and experiments to large-scale adoption, is when we can hit those kind of benchmarks. We think that leasing is probably the way to do it. We think that leasing robots to contractors who can move from farm to farm and provide a service is the way that this is likely to scale. So at the end of the day, it'll all be about how much additional income can that sprayer or contractor earn. And that additional income is going to come from that portability, the ability to go around and service multiple farms in a day. It will come from that interchangeability, the ability to have one robot that they can change between tasks. That's how they can hit those sort of numbers, like $100 and $200 and $300 a month in additional income. That's what we need to get to if we're going to be able to realize the value of a $1,000 or $2,000 robot. We need to be able to return that sort of value every month to a contractor. So that's the way we're thinking. That's what we're building toward, is that leasing model and allowing those contractors to earn additional income. Of course, there are pockets of industries where this is more relevant than elsewhere. We're really interested in vegetables because of the value and the loss to pest and disease in the vegetable industry. And we do see a fair bit of contractor usage in the vegetable industry. So we are seeing vegetable farmers outsourcing spraying, outsourcing weeding, and that's the magic. It's once farmers are making the decision to outsource labor, that's when we can move to a contracting and ultimately to an automation type model. So they're the kind of industries that we're looking for. A little bit of commentary there on the size of the market. As we all know, each individual farmer, the value of each individual service on each individual farm is low, but it is a big market. I might finish there, but just to say that our product is in development. We are looking for partners, trial and testing partners, particularly agribusiness partners, and keen to talk to anybody that wants to understand more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Rolly, do we have a side panel going?
Yes, sir. So two questions. What types of crops canopy it's applicable? Is it only for nursery? And the second one is, do your multiple robots talk with each other, efficiency per acre? These are the questions.
Sorry, the first question was about applicability to crops. So as I said, we started in vegetables, and we started in vegetables because of the crop value and the loss to pest and diseases. We also really like vegetables because the farmers will typically mound their crop rows. So the vegetables are typically elevated above the row by between 10 and 20 centimeters. And that's really interesting from a robot navigation point of view. That allows us to navigate within the crop row using relatively low-cost sensors. So that's where we've come to focus on vegetables. And sorry, can you remind me of the second question, Rolly?
Second question says that, do your multiple robots talk with each other, communicate during the operations? And what is the efficiency per acre? How many robots has to be deployed in
Sure.
Yeah, because wheel size is actually the worry point.
Yeah. So a single robot operating alone will spray 1 hectare in an hour. 2 robots working together will halve that time to half an hour. And yes, the robots can do what we use an alternate row structure. So 1 robot in the first row, 1 in the second, and then the first robot does all the odd numbers rows, the second robot does all the even number rows. So they aren't actually in communication with each other, they just share the rows between them, and that does allow a single person to refill both robots and halve the time that it takes.
Right. Thank you, Paul. Shivam and Poroli, if there are no other questions, I may have one at the end. Are there other questions, please?
No, sir. Please go ahead.
All right. So, Paul, a wonderment, and this probably is a wonderment for any technology. When the rubber hits the road, when the services have to be deployed, one of the key problems on the ground is the organizing of demand. The routing of demand such that the asset utilization is high, right? Every square meter takes the same amount of time, but from 1 square meter to the other, when you change farms, is where a lot of value is destroyed. And the blame comes on the technology, not on the routing. Do any of you also simultaneously, have you paid attention to development of algorithms for demand management, route management, and daily deployment, and so on? It's daily work management essentially that pays off.
Yeah, look, it's a really good point, and I think it will ultimately be really critical to adoption. I don't see Ambit Robotics building a marketplace for contractors. I think there are people out there that are doing that and doing that very well. A couple of comments. I think one is that WhatsApp is very effective. So I think farmers communicate with contractors all the time using messaging, and it's not the sort of high-end app-driven marketplaces that we like to see and we love and venture capital loves. But farmers do utilize chat really effectively to schedule contractors. And I think we've seen already a much greater utilization of equipment and labor because of messaging. But I think there are marketplaces will come. If you look at the Chinese drone industry, which is probably the most developed smallholder automation industry in the world, the drone contractors do use marketplaces, they use messaging, and it is generally very efficient. The other thing I'll just say quickly is if you have a disease management cycle, it's very short. So if you look at fungicides in tomatoes and potato, farmers are often spraying every 3 or 4 days, particularly right across the cropping season, they might spray 22 times. It's when you've got that kind of high level of use that a contractor can go to 3 or 4 farms in a day, and then 4 days later, they're back at the same farm again. And that's going to really lift utilization. If you've got spot use, one spray a season on lots of different farms, that's when utilization becomes really tricky. So I think we'll probably see automation become much easier where there's a really regular use of labor for tasks that are done every few days. I think that's the secret.
And one last one. I noted that we saw the robot, but I didn't see a photograph of the tank that accompanies it. And it's typically, when you're looking at pesticide management, it's the tanks, filling of the tanks, so to speak, during the day, that becomes the real bottleneck on getting the molecule to the plant.
So that's that robot that you see there is the tank. It's only 8 liters in the robot at any given time. So it's refilled at the end of every second row. And you can do that in a number of ways. You can do that from a backpack. You can do that from a 44-gallon drum with a hose. There's a whole lot of different ways that you can refill it. But that little robot that you see there it's pretty much all tank. There's just motors underneath.
Thank you once again, Paul. And I'm sure a lot of the audience would want to reach out to you directly. I certainly will encourage our council to make a durable program for engaging with you folks. With that, I move to Ajay Sharda, Dr. Ajay Sharda, who is all the way from the Punjab. And as I said earlier, an alum of my company that I had the privilege of working for back 22 years ago. Ajay's research is very, very relevant, and his work is very relevant to some of the major challenges, as I read from his resume, to Indian soil. Over to you, Ajay, and look forward to being excited about what you do. Ajay, can you hear me?
Muted.
Oh.
I need to unmute myself and then.
Yes. The ultimate button.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and I'm glad I have somebody who's back from my one of my first job out of the college. Had a lot of fun time in Escorts, to be honest with you. Got a really good boss, and new product launch happened during my 1 year and 3 or 4 month period, when Farm Track came. So it was very exciting times for me. No, thank you for this opportunity. And I'm really glad I'm here to share some of the things what we are doing. I'm in the biological and agricultural engineering department at Kansas State University. I came to US in 2006, spent almost 4.5, 5 years at Auburn for my PhD program. My focus was primarily on liquid application systems, sprayers, so to speak, focusing on control system responses, control system, verification, some of the things from that standpoint. Then I worked a little bit in the Washington State University, where the center name was Center for Precision and Automated Agricultural Systems. So a lot of robotic automation for, again, liquid application in the orchard setup, which was, again, a very exciting time to learn something from row crops, cotton, corn, soybean, to all the way to apples and cherries and so on and so forth. And then here I'm at K-State. This is my 9th year at Kansas State University, and we are so excited in terms of what we have got going from that part. Just to give just a quick second. Just to give you guys a very quick feedback on what we have been here doing things. Most of I'm leading a lab named Fusing Automation and Robotics in Ag Machine Systems. Our focus here from the program standpoint is the development and verification of machine systems. That's one of our major focus. We work with the large ag equipment, planters, sprayers are one of our major technology development verification forte from that standpoint. Do a lot of high-speed imaging, high-speed data acquisition, hardware in the loop simulation, hardware evaluation, developing an aspect as well. Some of the things we also do and help with is a new sensing system development. I have a little image on the top right corner. This is a clear example of a very relevant addition. So just to give you a very brief background, we have large planters, right? 24 row, 36 row planters. They are high speed planters. We want to control the depth. The placement means every single seed is placed at the right spacing and all that. Most of those things are right now indirect. Now, this sensing system goes on the row unit or a planter, and it takes images of the seed as the seed is being placed in the furrow, and it will give you the spacing between two consecutive seeds, the depth of the trench, and the geolocation of every single seed on your field. So think about it. What it can give you is the total actual population on a field scale. From my standpoint, what we learn is what was average singulation, what was the seed population, but we never know what was the true count or live plant or number of seeds planted. Number two, things like that can give me a real-time feedback. Say, for example, if I start to lose the spacing aspect of it, I can give feedback to my hydraulic systems. I can give back feedback to my pneumatic systems to control the seed singulation aspect of it. And by knowing the true depth, now we have hydraulic downforce systems, which are individual row. That means we have accumulators, we have hydraulic systems, sensors. So now I can give a real-time feedback. So this is one of the many examples. We have done some amazing work in this last 2 years. We have very strong collaborations with both John Deere and Case New Holland. We've done lots of work in liquid application system. This is something I want to second with the session chair, that this is a topic which is near and dear to my heart, and we still do not have a really good spray application system for the Indian industry, so to speak, which we can rely on. Then we do a lot of thermal infrared imaging. This is a topic which our lab has been engaged in the last 6-7 years. Ever since I came to K-State, we have developed a lot of systems around it, really trying to tell people who are in the phenotyping, crop health, and many other aspects, how can we learn the health and development of these crops well in advance. We have a lot of problem with sudden death syndrome, disease onset, and some of these systems can give you an idea of disease onset many days in advance, in terms of your foliar symptoms or what we can see from a naked eye. We are in the process of developing a lot of sensor systems for UAVs. And I'm going to talk one of the system which we are using both between UAV and our robotic component as well. Then our next, which is a very, very big focus right now within our team, within K-State, we work very actively between computer science, entomology, agronomy, ag economist, and a lot of mechanical engineers from that standpoint. My own lab has people from mechanical engineering background, electrical engineering, communication, and a lot of ag engineers. So climate smart digital ag is one of the bigger things. How can we become more resilient to these climate adversities, which are really impacting the selection of hybrids, the selection of chemicals, the timing aspect of the water component. So very complex ag ecosystem and the stability of food chain, both for human and animal consumption. We have a really exciting faculty member in our computer science that he does work on something called knowledge graph. So we are really integrating that knowledge graph component into our program. We have some active latest research funded from NSF and USDA from that standpoint. And obviously, the artificial intelligence is the core of it, whether we are using sensors, cameras, and like Paul was saying, we use a lot of things which are off the shelf as of the moment. You know, for our program from in academia, we don't want to sit down and start building sensors, which takes forever, and the sensors may take shape, may never take shape. So our goal is that I'm going to go out and get some systems which are off the shelf, put it together, show them how it works. You know, safe example in this this aspect of the sensor for our planters. You know, develop machine learning, artificial intelligence, neural net approaches, get it all fixed. We have a strong collaboration with OSB Germany. So our next step here is to develop to make it CAN ready. So I just want to share that what is a breadth of experience people can have, you know, working from machine systems to imaging, to developing some neural net, to get some CAN ready systems and put it on. And this, we have a patent on this. We have leased this patent to one of the largest manufacturers, and we have put the system on the planter, and very exciting data this season. And we're looking forward to, you know, what is in the pipeline for future. Something very specific I want to talk from one of our projects. We have a USD and NIFA, but it's a National Robotic Initiative NSF program, primarily focused on robotic automation aspect of it. So this project is as autonomous insect sense, identify, and manage platform. Like the other Paul, the second Paul, we talking about the robot aspect of it. This is primarily the use case scenario for this robot is liquid application. And I cannot impress more on in terms of how much money we are spending on chemical application, and most of the approaches are broad acre application, right? And we have no idea on how many acres of crop really have the pest population, which is critical to be controlled, right? So our approach, the other thing is there are lots of robotic platforms, and there are a lot of new robotic systems. I'm not going to go into that. Paul was spot on. Some of the newer kind of startups or things which are kind of coming along, especially in our case in the US, they are going towards a service model. That's what they're talking about. Especially from a perspective that these systems are, you know, under development. They have a lot of scalability needs to come along, a lot of robustness. So it is learning on the go and providing some solution. So there are a lot of robotics, you know, components out there. But our approach, we wanted to take approach of sending a robot in the crop rows, right? Something which can go within a single crop row, because when I'm sensing something from over the top using UAVs or something which is over the canopy, I cannot see something going under the canopy, right? Most of the time, the insect sites are under the leaf, close to the ground or lower on the lower side of the canopy. And similar things are also true for any kind of a nutrient deficiency. So by the time you're going to see the nutrient deficiency on the top of the crop, time has gone by, and that is a road of no return, because it's too late in the game. So I need to catch those things early in the season. So that was our goal from this standpoint. We really want to make sure that this is a smart, functional system, which is environmentally sustainable and scalable from that standpoint. So going from that part, what we have taken in this project, we have four verticals in terms of collaborators. We have a computer vision system, which is primarily to develop algorithms to detect the insects. Now, what we are using in this use case is we are developing this thing for something called sorghum, and we are using it for aphids, right? And the aphids are under the leaf, and when the aphids are breeding and they are feeding, they drop some sticky material on the top of the lower leaf as well, right? So it's a way of understanding how the insects kind of behave and breed and expand. So there's a challenge in terms of looking at very, very small insects which develop in colonies. So I think this is going very strong. We have lots of images training, and initial algorithm is kind of on the horizon to be used in 2022. Autonomous platform, I'll show you a video. This platform is fully autonomous and ready. We tested that the platform in the field this season, in the crop, in the field, and every time we go to the field, like Paul was saying, it's a new learning. It's a new day of new problems and how to solve that problem to get over to the hump to the next stage. Then we are very, very heavily focused on smart data communication aspect of it, like I was talking about. This is another small sensing kind of a package we have developed within our lab, starting from circuit boards to programs and testing and all. But this is a very exciting, this is one of our pet projects. So this little board has a Topcon dual frequency GNSS receiver, which is high end in terms of navigation and control. We are partnering with it is showing on the bottom of my slide with Microhard. It's a company out of Canada who makes radio communication. These radios can communicate up to 40 miles in a straight line of sight, which is pretty amazing in terms of what they can do. And we have 9-axis gyros, data acquisition, onboard everything. But some of the cool things in this is that you can connect it to any UAV, and it can start giving the RTK. And I still want to claim that this is one of the solution which is giving you RTK solution on board. So this radio is talking to a survey grade GPS on ground to put out an RTK corrected data. So this data can go to so this board is helping us in large ag machine testing verification part of it. It goes on UAV because the total weight of this board is 140 grams. Then it can time trigger any color camera. It can give the data to the thermal cameras. So very functional system in terms of what we want. And obviously the entomology is one of the number one thing, obviously the backbone of it. I don't want to talk too much about the path planning navigation aspect. A lot of we are putting out a new IP around how we can navigate within the field. These systems will be capable of going in a field with the full knowledge of where things are, and it will be a completely decentralized path and motion planning component from that part. From a system, this is a quick image of it, but this is the whole stack, of what are things: data stack, computation, GNSS communication stack, cloud computing, navigation, localization, computer vision, and very, very typical thing from that standpoint. The other thing I want to talk is if we have to make these systems functional in the ag space, particularly in the US, where farms are large and the access to any kind of broadband is very limited, we have to have a very robust communication system between the robots and also with the central hub. So that has become one of our pet projects in terms of developing that data communication system, which can continuously communicate and obviously go to our gateway and all that knowledge graph kind of a development thing. This communication system has taken a big leap this year with our first prototype ready to go on multiple robots in 2022, where high fidelity real-time data will be available at a central hub to work with. And like I said, the people on the back end and the computer science, data science people, they are going to develop knowledge graphs. So knowledge graph will be that somebody can type. We are also partnering with a company called Ag Voice. So you can pretty much just ask the system, hey, can you give me a comparative current utilization of all the motors between 4 robots, and it will give you a graph of everything over time in field or multiple fields. So you can just ask what kind of queries you want to generate, and it'll give you system by system or competitive thing. This is a quick video. Like I was saying, the very first time the system actually went out and sprayed. This is a team who's looking at, we have a lot of validation going on the crop, looking at the efficacy of the product deposition, how good the product deposition was. Is it covering off both sides of the crop. We don't want to go back and spray on the other side. It should be able to just give a single pass, and it should go to the one row over rather than going into the each row aspect of it. This is all I have, to talk about. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions if you have. These are some of our websites. If you want to look more information on this.
Thank you, Ajay. And that was a fascinating span, a fascinating panorama of applications. Roly, do we have questions coming up? Strangely, today I don't see the side panel, but nevertheless, go ahead. Roly?
So one question is there that in case of university in United States, the research and R&D spin-offs are very much happening. So this particular spin-off is actually happening at your place also, and how this university research spin-offs can actually be converted into viable commercialable startups.
Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer, and like both Pauls are here. They're very. I think it's a unique panel as well. Something from somebody from academia and somebody who is actually doing a startup. So yes, these things are happening. The most viable solution. So from our perspective, and the approach what we have taken is that sometime the industry is going on its pace, right? And when the industry is going on its pace, you can do few things and you can continue telling, hey, there is a gap like that, even in existing systems. I can tell you, we have, or not only we, lots of faculty around the United States, they have worked on these systems. And particularly from our side, we have identified some key gaps in commercial technology, which is just mind-boggling. And it was only after persistent effort on our scale and continue to showcase incremental information on those gaps that we were able to draw their attention on these gaps. But once this happens, the second stage happens. That is that the industries really starts to look at you and reach out to you to start working. Tell me, Paul from Netherlands, if this is applicable to you guys as well. But if this stage happens, now you are at a stage where you have, because you have to have access to these things. It's US market, large equipment. Yes, we are looking at autonomous system, but we are a large equipment country at this point. Our sprayers are big, our planters are big, our spreaders are big. Tractors are going over 600, 700 horsepower, 800 horsepower to say. So that happens, and then you start to work more. So I'm just going to quickly finish this story. Then if that happens, now we are working with one company where all of this incremental things are resulting into a new product development, which is in a very advanced stage. We have like 9-10 patents around it, which are between the company and K-State. And that is one phase. The other is that you can take a route of funding from the federal funding agencies like USDA and NSF. And then you go out, do crazy things, crazy things which nobody would like you to do. And then if you get successful and you have some working models to it, now you're looking at two things. One, you can directly reach out to the same industry folks, or you can have your own startup. So startup, some of the startups have been very successful. Like, Blue River is one example, sold for a couple of $100 million to John Deere. And there are so many examples like that. but not too many startups get that kind of a boost, right? It's not easy for startups to gather. We have another good startup. You know, there's a startup called Burrow. I know. I think it's a New Zealand or Australian thing, I guess. So that startup has raised a lot of money, from that. So yeah, long story short, it's not a straightforward thing. They are happening, but they are very selective in terms of who gets successful.
Ajay, in the interests of time, everybody, I have a few questions as well for Ajay, but I'm going to have to move on. I'm watching the clock. So
sorry, sir.
No, in fact, not at all. That was awesome. May I move to our friend Ben from Israel, from Blue White Robotics. And over to you, Ben, to introduce yourself, your company, and what you have to tell us. Do go right ahead.
Hi, everyone. So first of all, it's Alon. It's not Ben.
Oh, Alon, my apologies.
Now sleeping in California, so I'm replacing him.
I had the wrong introduction on my screen. Apologies.
That's definitely fine. But thank you for having us, and thank you for this very interesting panel. And it's very interesting to see different people trying to tackle, generally speaking, the same problems in many ways and direction. And basically, that's the only way to solve it initially. So a little bit background about myself and about the company. Actually, me and most of the founders and the managers in the company are Air Force veterans. We didn't come from the ag world. We come from the autonomous technology world. We spent many years in R&D of unmanned aerial vehicles. And we can see that generally speaking, the revolution that we want to see in ag already happened in the Air Force, in the military, where the majority of the flight hours, the majority of the tasks being done with the unmanned system. And we basically spent our last days in the Air Force building platforms for autonomous system at scale. How you can actually execute all those missions on day-to-day routine on very large scale, efficiently, easily, simplify them. So it won't take 6 years to train F-16 pilot, but it would take 2 days to train someone in the farm to operate his autonomous farm. So this is a little bit of our background. The company is Israeli, founded 5 years ago, and currently we are focusing on the West Coast in California, where Washington State and Australia as our main markets, because we are tackling permanent crops, so orchards and vineyards. I will share here a few slides. I'll be mindful for the time and do it really quick, and maybe share a short video. So our vision is to try to revolutionize agriculture through autonomy, not only looking on the small implementation of one robot or to create the first autonomous platform, but to really see how we can leverage this technology on a broader scale and really change the way we grow crops for the better. The values of the company is fellowship, love of the land, and innovation, and we really care about it. And we working with a lot of people across the industry, universities, organization, regulation, and so on to push this forward. I think I already spoke about that. We're around 120 employees. I'm managing our US company. We're around 25 people in California. Backed by VCs. And to the last question that was raised, the nice thing about, I would say, the last year, that you see more and more general VC, venture capitals, investing in ag startups, and not only ag super focused and small ag venture capitals, So more people see the potential of this problem and the business potential of this challenge, and technology viable or ability to solve it. Permanent crops. So permanent crops are highly labor intensive, highly mechanical intensive. Instead of having one very expensive $500,000 robot in corn, you have 20 robots or 20 tractors for almond orchard or vineyard. So of course there's a huge labor shortage, but also labor cost is rising, labor regulation is getting more challenging, and so on. But on the other hand, we do see regulation being more friendly to ag use cases, and we see very big customer acceptance. You see growers, even the traditional ones, saying, I have to innovate or die. I have no other solution to save my business. I have no other way to maybe cut costs and save here and save that. If I won't get a dramatic change, I probably won't be able to continue doing my business and grow these crops. So the customer acceptance for autonomous technology is definitely rising. And we see a lot of different opportunities. So we tackle labor first. We call it autonomy first on the labor side, but definitely once you integrated this platform, there's a lot of potential to grow. So what we're doing, we basically provide autonomous farm. We provide the complete infrastructure to convert a traditional orchard or vineyard to autonomous. It starts by transforming existing fleet of tractors to autonomous. We chose not to develop a completely new vehicle. Clients and the growers rely on their existing fleet. They're gonna have it for the next decade. They already chose the right tractor, the right sprayer, the right mower for their implements and their soil and their type of crop. So kind of like to ease this decision making. So we convert the existing vehicle to robot. We manage the fleet and the data through our software. And very importantly, we provide it as a service. And the reason we do it is to make sure the adoption process is working correctly. So even if you provide this amazing technology that works and simplified and everything is working good, if you won't use it correctly, and if you won't utilize it, no one gonna use it for the long run. Value proposition, of course, is maximize annual saving. The guys are a high revenue, low margin. You have to save the business and provide real ROI from day one. We are saving money on labor, of course. One guy can operate multiple vehicles, equipment. One tractor can do more, so you need less, smaller fleet size. And the inputs with smarter spraying and more precise spraying, you spend much less money on the chemical usage. Of course, sustainability, like we heard here from Paul, it's dangerous, and then we assist on that effort as well. Connectivity, you also spoke about that, about the challenge in America, but probably in all rural areas around the world with connectivity and coverage. And we do see ourselves not only providing the technology here, is actually assisting those farms to train their personnel and to empower the workforce to adopt this thing, to become the 21st century farmer. So short note about what we're doing or how it looked like. The kit that we develop can be installed on any tractor. We maintain the ability to drive the tractor completely manual. So basically you tuck the switch and it's on robot mode. What was crucial for us is to make sure that we can do every mission that a tractor driver can do. So it focused on being a multi-mission, pesticide spray, herbicide spray, mowing, disking, all the different tasks that needed along the years. Because if I can do only 2, so you still have a person, you must have a person on site to do the rest of it manually. So that was kind of the focus on day 1. High precision and safety, of course, especially when you try to gain trust in the technology. If you, after 3 days, crush a tree or crush the vehicle, it's not a good thing to having a compromise on performance. And to be flexible and robust enough for any environment. You going to 2 almond growers, same vehicles, same fleet, same county in California, same weather, it's different. The machines are different, the practices are different, the soil could be a little bit different, and you need to take this into account when you try to provide a scalable commercial product. The software platform, we are, of course, starting with this kit, but we understand that there's no one vehicle that do it all. It have to be kind of like a mixture of vehicles, and also with air and ground abilities. Drones have some advantages to very specific tasks that they can do better. So the platform as a platform work with basically any kind of vehicle with different protocols. So we're controlling both air and ground vehicles, autonomous vehicles, real-time planning, monitoring, control, also with those challenges of low bandwidth and low coverage in mind, ability to use those robots as a data collection platform. So while we're spraying, we're also collecting information that we can transfer to a third party crop analysis or disease recognition or yield estimation company or service that now can execute or deliver their service in a much more accessible way. So we focus on that, and of course on in-field communication. We're working with various technologies. We members of the 5G Open Innovation Lab, deploying 5G private and public networks on those robotics as part of the solution. I will share 1-minute video if it's okay, just to
please.
to have something
Please
moving on the screen. See some action. Can you see the video?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So you'll see here, I muted the music, but you can see here different type of clients tractor. Everything is on commercial farms in California, citrus, nuts, vineyards, different implements. It's was very important to integrate different solution and tackle different challenges on each implement, whether it's the hydraulic operation of the vehicle, whether it's smart controlling of the tractor in the back, to make sure, again, that this infrastructure that we provide can tackle the main technological challenges needed to actually deploy this value for the grower.
Thank you.
My last slide. Any questions?
Roli or Shivam,
Yes.
anything rolling?
One question has came up, sir. One question has came up. Do you think, Alan, retrofitting in the robotics is a nice business model, or robotics itself, that machines, rover or robots or drones, is a good business model?
I think it's time to market. That's the question here. So 10 years from now, in 2031 or 32, I assume that all the OEM gonna sell autonomous kits off the shelf. you can pay additional $20,000 and you'll get the tractor with some automation on top of it. And it will be broadly used. Now, first of all, but within this next decade, there's a race on who gonna be the main technology providers to those technologies, who would be the infrastructure behind it. And that's the first thing. And the second thing is, of course, when you look at a very, very small farm that you have maybe one tractor and you make this decision of your fleet, your 1 or 2 tractor fleet, you make this decision every 5 years. So yes, maybe in 2025, they will completely become robotics. But when you look at the medium plus growers that, of course, in America are very common, that have dozens of vehicles in their fleet minimum, it will take them a decade also to replace all their fleet. But the problem is today, they don't have the tractor drivers today. They want solution now. So the way we see it, the core of the technology is the same, and the value proposition is the same, and the service level is the same. We are doing those kits because that's what's available right now, you know, but whether we are starting working with different OEMs on trying to leverage this technology and install it on a new vehicle, it just basically everything is dependent on the time. So I think it's a process. So right now, this is the only way to go.
You know, I wish that had gone along. I'm sure a lot of our audience felt like kids in a candy store or a toy store. And that's the kind of excitement all 4 of you generated. The trouble with time is that it's finite. And we do need to put a stop because there's another session in the next few minutes. But as I go, I want to get a 1-2 line answer from each of you. All these toys are well, let me not call them toys, all these developments. So for the wide-eyed, these are all toys. I want to hear from you 2 lines each about where is India in all this? How do you think about getting this stuff to my 300+ million acres? So let's go with Alon first.
Economy of scale. The problem is the same. I even learned that China in the western regions, rural region, have the same labor shortage because no one is there. So we are tackling first the more expensive labor regions, but once the technology will be more accessible, will more widely used, it will be available everywhere and will reach.
My question is, when are you coming to India with all this?
Tomorrow morning. Just invite us.
We'll lay out the red carpet. Ajay? How is India on your radar?
So we are working with so Mahindra & Mahindra is one of our major collaborators. We have been working with them for the last 6 years now. But no, all of these things are top of on our radar. And like Alan was saying, I think from Indian perspective, all these artificial intelligence and neural net component, that will be the key. And there are a lot of startups I've seen in India, big startups providing digital solutions. So my understanding is slightly different. I think there's a lot of labor, but I think they need some sort of intelligence in their hands to do things. So, well, no, I'm still rooted in Punjab Agriculture University. That's where I've graduated. And we have lots of friends, faculty. We have been, yes, and yes of everything. India is on top of our radar for everything.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
And how does India look from Australia, Paul?
Yeah, we have units in India already in operation, and I think as I said throughout the presentation, I think in the Asian context where we do have very small farms and farms that quite various in their shape and geometry. I think we do need distinctive robotic solutions, and I talked about portability as well and moving between farms. I think that's really important.
Thank you. And I am quite familiar with Veganinen's interest in India. But thank you, one and all, for this lovely session. It was a privilege and a pleasure to be your host for the evening. Back to Dr. Shivam and get the system ready for the next session in a few minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thank you, panelists. Just to give a formal vote of thanks, I take this opportunity to thank the chair and all the speakers and panelists for this very interesting and thought-provoking session. We're sure the participants enjoyed it and gained from rich presentations and conversations. I would also like to thank ITC, PI Industries, and New Holland Tractors, our principal partners, Corteva, Rallis, SmartChem, and ADM Agro, our principal co-partners, NetFM, our associate partner. I would request all the participants to join us for another very interesting panel session, which is just starting at 6 p.m. It's on post-harvest technologies, and we have experts from US, Australia, Italy, and Austria joining us for the session. With that, I would thank you all for this